Is it time for recess yet? I'm so glad you found time to join us here on the Child Care Director's Chair, where Erica Scoccio shares her best practices that she's refined through her passion of directing childcare centers over the last 23 years. From parenting interaction, systems to save you time, money, and stress, to profitability. She shares it all from the Child Care Director's Chair.
Hey guys, it's Erica Scoccio here with another episode of the Child Care Director's Chair podcast. If this is your first time on the show, well, welcome. If you are one of my loyal listeners, you already know what I'm going to say. I love you. So there's a good chance that you're listening to this podcast this morning. Maybe when you're working out, maybe when you're going for a walk, maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're at home making breakfast, or maybe you're already at your center because usually we're the first ones in. So wherever you are today, I want to say thank you. Perhaps you're even listening to this at the end of the night and you needed a little more inspiration and motivation. I don't know if this episode is going to be a good one for at night because I think it's going to get the wheels turning in your head. So if it is night, you might want to pick a different episode because this one's going to kind of keep you motivated and make you want to take some action. So just be warned. Before we dig in to the content today, I would like to say a big thank you to my fans in Michigan, Georgia, Maine, Minnesota, Massachusetts, North Carolina, Missouri, of course, my people in Wisconsin, my home state, Rhode Island, and those in Texas. I cannot wait to meet all of you in Texas, July 3rd, 4th, and 5th at the TeachCon Conference. I will have a meet and greet table there, and I hope that you will stop by. So let's get into today's content. I would like to talk about how you communicate your vision and inspire clarity and alignment with your team. Because let's face it, I love excellence, and it's very hard to get there without being real clear and real specific, and then also giving folks a little motivation. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how I do that at my center. I do it a variety of ways, but one way that really off the top of my head that really gets people excited for quite a length of time is when we put together our strategic planning meetings. And our strategic planning meetings incorporate all of our locations. We usually hold it off-site. Some folks like to call it a vision casting meeting. Some folks hold those types of meetings on a regular basis. I do mine on a yearly, and I make a big deal about it. And I want to share a little story. So I had a teacher, it was maybe about 2 years ago, I had a teacher who had come to one of the meetings. And at the end of the meeting, she said to me, "This is how I know I'm in the right place." She said, "I had never been to a meeting like that in my life. I have never felt so included in a company. I never felt like I really understood my role in that company. And I really just never been this excited to work here. So thank you. Thank you for sharing all the things you shared. Thank you for being so transparent. And thank you really for just being you and being motivating and inspiring." And of course, I was like, well, thanks so much, because I do a lot of preparation for those meetings. And my intent, my goal is to really re-energize and pour everything I have into my team, because I know when they grow and they feel great and they feel confident, I know so will my program. And when I say grow, I don't necessarily mean I want more locations, because I don't want more locations. But in my ever relentless pursuit of excellence, it's so nice to have a team that's behind that vision. It's really important to me, and I want to keep striving to be as good as I can be, and I want them to be as good as they can be. And so it takes a great amount of detail, a great amount of attention, and a great amount of what I'm looking for, intentionality. And so I want you to be able to do that for your team as well. So as I said, on this podcast, sometimes we discuss, I love having guests, and we chit chat about, best practice and how to pour into your team. I love those episodes. Those are great. You can catch our guest spots on Wednesdays. I also like to reflect. I ask a lot of questions during episodes, questions of myself and questions for you to also ask yourself, because I think the more reflective we are as educators, the better our field will be. And so I really, truly believe that. And that's a practice that I hope that you will instill in yourself. Because when you do that, it makes things real, real clear for you. And when things are clear, you really, really can get to a place where you feel so good about the work you're doing and the impact that you're making. Because I promise you are. And I know sometimes it feels tireless and you might feel exhausted. And I get that too. Although you might be listening to this in the morning, it's 7:30 at night over here on Rhode Island at this time of this recording. And I had a long day, but I am always so excited to come back and talk to all of you. So let's get into it. So how do you create this strategic planning meeting to really inspire your folks and make sure that your message is loud and clear and where you share and are able to articulate your vision, your values, and your long-term goals with your team members to make sure that it's clear and compelling. So number one is you need to clarify your vision. Before the meeting, you want to take time to clarify your vision for excellence in early childhood education. You have to go back to what are your core values. Ask yourself, what are they? Do you know what they are? Are they written down? Is this something that you used in your daily practice? I know I do. I even use them on this podcast. My core values do not change. They are my core values. They're my core values when I go grocery shopping, when I'm working with children, when I'm on my podcast. And they are, for those of you who listen to my podcast, you already know, but maybe this is your first time. Number one is family. Family to me is everything. Number two is community. I love my community. I will do everything I can to pour back into it because they have given me so much. Passion for teaching, I mean, that goes without saying. I could talk about ECE literally all day long. And professionalism. Professionalism for myself, holding myself to that standard, holding my team to that standard, and helping all of us together rise up in this world that maybe doesn't always look at us as professionals. That's going to be probably my last breath. My last breath is going to be, I'm not a babysitter. And so how do we clarify this vision? So before the meeting, you want to make sure that you take time to really think about what do you want your team to walk away with. I also want you to consider how you want to impact the children, the families, and your community. Because again, if your strategic planning meeting is all about how you're making FTE and how you're going to build your 99th location, right? That's all great. That's like a byproduct of the work that you're doing. I want you to focus on how do you be the best, not the biggest. How do you be the best, right? Because that's the message I am going to talk about on this show. I want you to feel good about going to work. I want you to feel good about walking into your centers. I want you to feel good about the team that you have in your four walls and under your roof. I want you to get to a point where that team is like family. And sometimes they become family, but is like family. And I know lots of places say it. And sometimes it's looked upon like, I've heard some folks say, they're not family, they're your employees, blah, 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 blah. No disrespect to the people who say that. But for me, they're my family. I spend 10, 11 hours a day with my team. I go to birthday parties. I go to births of children. I go to weddings. I go to their to wakes. There is just something about when you work with people for 10, 11, 20 years, there is no way they're not part of your family. And so I want that for you if that's something you want. If you're looking for how do you just get the best A player who's going to make you the most money, this is probably not the show for you. I want you to feel that what you're doing is making a difference, what your team is making a difference. And you want to be able to clarify that vision. I'm not saying you can't make money. Of course you can make money. And of course you can expand your center if that's what you want to do. Just make sure it's what you want to do and be careful what you wish for, because the more centers you get, you lose a little piece of what made your first and second and third location so great. So going back to that, clarify your vision. What do you want your team to walk away from that meeting? So then you're going to craft your message. Develop a clear and concise message that communicates your vision in a compelling way. And use language that's inspiring and authentic and relatable to your team members. Because if you start talking jargon in ways that you don't normally speak, aka using other people's framework or other people's meeting notes, and they say, your coach just said, this is how you should run a meeting. Just make sure, and that's okay to use a framework, but make sure that it is authentic and inspiring. And there are so many great YouTube videos that I have used in the past. They're inspirational ones, motivational speeches, or ones on teamwork that I will usually use at the beginning of my meeting. And I strategically will put some in throughout the meeting itself. We'll get to that next. But make sure that the language that you're using is inspiring. No one likes the meetings where everything is, I don't want to say negative, but either a rag session where everybody's complaining about this or that, or it's so black and white and there's nowhere for people to take the conversation or grow with the conversation or get excited about. That's why I say don't have every single part of your meeting planned out where nobody can contribute, because if not, you might as well just make a video and read them the notes. If there's not going to be a back and forth conversation. So make it be inspiring and relatable to your team members, because they have to see, again, just like that staff member said, where they fit in, and highlight the benefits and the impact of achieving that vision for both the children and the staff. Because I hear a lot of this, that folks are supposed to get behind you to make more money, to open your 50th location, right? They want to know, I hate to say, but the what's in it for them. And I don't mean in a bad way. I mean in a good way. Like, they want to know, how do they get to grow too? Not the what's in it for me, like being greedy, but what's in it for them in terms of growth, in terms of, are there more, is there going to be a place for me to move up in the company? Are there new positions available? Are we opening up new programs that offer new opportunities, not only in the classroom, but outside of the classroom? So craft your message. So 1, clarify your vision. Number 2, craft your message. Number 3, you want to create visual aids, because everybody learns differently. So prepare visual aids such as slides, videos, and handouts to support your message during the meeting. Make sure you use lots of images and graphics, and even quotes to reinforce key points that make your vision more tangible and memorable. Because please don't have slides that have so much words on it, or where you're reading, God forbid, you're reading the slides to your team. Like, they can read. They're teachers, right? Use some visuals that people can relate to. I also love to use sometimes photos of the team themselves in my slides, because they love to see that. You know what's really funny? I want to actually point that out. We had a presenter who had come to do a workshop, best practice in working with children who have challenging behaviors. And as she's going through her slides, one of the pictures in the slide happened to be of one of our classrooms. And and it was an older picture. And one of the teachers said, "Hey, isn't that," I'm going to not say the right name, Susie? And I was like, "Oh my God, I was like, that's our center." And she said, "Is it?" And she looked, she goes, "I grabbed that picture off of Google." Now, what are the odds? She said, "I went on Google and I typed in appropriate toddler classrooms, and your image came up." So how is that for reinforcing what we were doing? That was 100% a coincidence that another trainer was using a photo of our classroom that happened to be I think it was on our Facebook page. She had, just Googled it and clipped it. So I thought that was cool, but the staff were so excited to see a picture of their classroom, them engaged with children, as the model for what was appropriate. So you can do that too for your own team when you're creating these slides for your meetings to get people really excited. It's also a great way to find those folks who really are always doing what they need to do. Put a little video clip. This is what an amazing toddler room looks like. And then put in the video, and surprise, it's, Miss Sheena and Mr. Shea with their group of children who just turned 3, 2.5 to 3-year-olds. They get really excited about that. So when you're making these visual aids, be sure to include your team. You want to set the agenda. That's number 4. So create an agenda for the meeting that outlines the topics that you will cover. And then don't forget activities. Activities are really fun, and that will help people engage. Include time for introductions, sharing your vision, being interactive, discussions, and Q&A. I'm going to go back and say that. Make sure you include time for intro, sharing your vision, things that are interactive, open discussions, and Q&A sessions. Now, how long of a meeting do I normally have? So our meeting is pretty long. It's about 4 to 5 hours. But again, we usually do it on a Saturday. We always serve food. It's either breakfast or lunch, depending on the time that we start the event. And it's intentional because we want not only for them to leave with clarity and be inspired, but we also want them to bond. And because the stronger your team is together, the more they bond together, the better the outcomes are going to be. I love to say at the beginning of the meetings, although it happens a lot, because I like to talk a lot, if you haven't already figured that out, but invite participation. Encourage active participation from your team members during the meeting. You want to make sure that you're creating opportunities for them to share their thoughts, their ideas, and feedback on the vision and how it aligns with their own values and goals, right? Because that also is equally important. If you're laying out something that someone isn't comfortable with or can't get behind, they're not going to participate. So it's a great time to have that interaction. So if somebody is hesitant, you can really kind of hash through that. And it doesn't always have to be at that meeting. It could be after the meeting. Call them in and say, hey, I noticed when we were talking about XYZ, your feedback was this. I want to make sure I understand, or can you explain to me your hesitancy? Because I would love to see it from your perspective. But invite that active participation. Tip number 6 is you want to make sure that you're preparing discussion prompts. You have to develop thought-provoking questions or discussion prompts to stimulate dialogue and engagement among your team members. If you don't, conversations tend to get off topic. So encourage them to be reflective on their role in achieving the vision and how they can contribute to its realization. Because if you just, ask one quick question and you say, okay, this table talk, before you know it, they're off topic. So, be real specific about the question and then have questions that make them dig deeper about their answers. The next thing I do when I'm preparing is I practice my delivery. Practice your delivering message will help you with facilitating discussions before the meeting to ensure that clarity and effectiveness, and pay attention to your tone, your body language, and your pacing to convey confidence and enthusiasm. If you come to the meeting, you're like, hey guys, all right, we got right? Nobody wants to sit through that, especially if it's a long meeting, right? But if you are practiced and you are well-versed and you are excited, like, guys, I'm so excited. You cannot even believe how excited I am to be here with all of you today. I love what you do for me every day in my center. And I can't wait to see how much we can grow as a team. I can't wait to hear what you guys think about this plan. I can't wait to hear what you think we can add to this plan to really knock it out of the park, right? It's that setup and that delivery. And then also being strategic about where you put other factors, which we all get to, but where you put other factors in your delivery of your message. Now, anticipate challenges because that could happen. You may get potential objections that team members may raise during the meeting. Be prepared with responses and be respectful. Be open to addressing concerns and brainstorming solutions collaboratively, because you may not be the one who comes up with the best idea. I know you might need to hear that again, but you're not always right. I'm not always right. Somebody can come up with something that's way better than what you could have even imagined. And then following up with the plan. So after you do all of this work and everybody is super excited and amped up, you want to make sure you follow up with the plan. Develop a follow-up plan to reinforce the key messages and the actions discussed during the meeting. Provide resources, support, and ongoing communication to keep your team members engaged and aligned with the vision. So those are some of the ways that I prepare. So again, clarify your vision, craft your message, create your visual aids, set your agenda, invite participation, prepare discussion prompts, practice your delivery, anticipate challenges because they're going to happen, and what's your follow-up plan to make sure that once you do all of this work, how are you going to follow up to then implement? So here are some little fun, juicy tidbits that I want to add. So you want to use the power of storytelling to communicate your vision in a compelling and relatable way. So share some success stories. You can share some success stories and have some of your teachers share success stories that are in line with what you are talking about in your goals. You want to share some anecdotes and some personal experiences that illustrate the impact of your vision on children, families, and your community. By weaving emotion and narrative into your communication, you can inspire and motivate your team members to work towards a common goal. So maybe, I don't know, I'm going to make this up. So we have the Hundreds Club at our school. And so me and Sherry were talking, and she was doing a really great job. I want to say out of 20 students, I'd say at least half knew all their numbers 1 through 100. Any order, they could tell you it, they could say it, they could write it, they could point it out, which is not a bad feat since most of her kids are 4 years old. And, as we're talking, she's getting very excited. And I said, we've never had a class that had that many. And that instantly, I seen this look in her eyes. She said, I'm going for all of them. I'm going to go for all of them. I'm going to see how many of these children are going to be able to accept this challenge. And, it was so nice to see because, we talked a lot about how the Hundreds Club even came up. And it was something that I started a long time ago when I was teaching in a pre-K classroom at my program. When it first started, I was one of the pre-K teachers. And, so it was, I believe, that storytelling about how it started, the impact it made on our students that got her so excited. And she was like, tell me more about this club. And the beginning of the year, she was just like, it's go time. And so she, every kind of way, every kind of fun, hands-on opportunity she could take to teach children about numbers and math skills, she was on it. But I believe it was that storytelling. It was that story that I shared with her that really got her inspired. So for years to come, she is going to be able to share success stories about this year's group. So stop by sharing success stories from your child care center. Highlight the moments when children achieved significant milestones, or maybe they overcame challenges or demonstrated remarkable growth, and use the stories to celebrate the impact for your team's efforts and reinforce their sense of purpose and pride in their work. So find some success stories in your program and stick them in that meeting. Don't tell people you're sticking them in the meeting. You're going to share them at the meeting. And it's a great way to also recognize the work that people are doing. Because sometimes when you're in the day-to-day, you're not really taking a step back and go, wow, Johnny really has come a long way over the school year, right? Personal anecdotes, share personal anecdotes and experiences that illustrate your own journey in early childhood education, and talk about the moments that have shaped your beliefs, your values, your commitment to providing quality care and education for children. By sharing your own story, you can create a sense of connection and empathy with your team members. And I can tell you, I share the history of our company every single time we have that meeting. I also share the history of myself as a child. I grew up in my community. I grew up poor. I'm very proud to let people know I grew up poor. I am not ashamed of that one bit. Actually, I think it helped shape the person I am today. And I a child who went to Head Start, all the things. I'm a product of early childhood education. And I'm going to say I did pretty well. Pretty well. But I was very confident as a young child, and that's because I had great teachers. And so I share that with people as well, as that's how I became so passionate. And then also being a mom of a young child. She's grown now, but when I came into the field, I had a little baby. She was 6 months old, and I wasn't leaving her with anybody else. That was like my baby. So I understood that too. So I understand being an owner and being a teacher and being a parent. And so I share many parts of that with my team during our strategic planning meeting. And it really does get people inspired. And it really does help people be reflective. Because some of the staff don't have children, and some of the staff do have children. And I really share that with them and say, this is my gauge. This is my guide. When I walk in your classroom, I always say to myself, would I put my daughter here? Would I put my son here? And that's my gauge, whether it's a thumbs up or it's not. And I know that all classrooms have good days and bad days, but overall, that's always my gauge. Would I put my own child here? So I like to share personal anecdotes. I think they go a long way, and it is a great way to bond with your team. Just because you're the leader doesn't mean you're not human. So people love to see that vulnerable side of you. You want to highlight impactful moments. Identify specific moments or interactions that have had a profound impact on you, on your team, or the children in your care. And describe the moments in vivid detail, focusing on the emotions, the lessons you learned, and positive outcomes that resulted. And you want to use storytelling to emphasize the importance of your team's work and difference that they make in the lives of children and families. So I can tell you some impactful moments that had happened in our center. One, being the first accredited after-school program in the state of Rhode Island. Two, being the first 5-star after-school program in the state of Rhode Island. Three, having 2 centers in the city that reached 4 stars. We weren't the first, but we were probably the third or fourth. We were pretty close right behind there. Another achievement I think I feel really proud of is never having to lay off a staff member ever. There are a lot of things. I also love when students or children that I had as students, I should say, bring their children back to my center. Now, keep in mind, I started 25 years ago, and I started in the school age field. Now I have everything from infants up to school age, but I started in the school age field. So if a child was 8 when I started, they're in their 40s. So I think that sharing the impact with my team and then also helping them look at the impact that they have made is priceless, and nothing's going to motivate people more than that. And you want to create that visionary narrative. Paint a vivid picture of your vision for excellence in early childhood through storytelling. Describe what does success look like in your center, and make sure you include your values, your practices, and the outcomes that you aspire to achieve. Because when you say you want to be the best, what does that mean to you? What does that look like? How will we know when we get there? And so it's really important that you paint that picture for your team of what it looks like. And you definitely want to encourage story sharing. Foster a culture of storytelling within your childcare team by encouraging team members to share their own stories and experiences. Create opportunities for them to reflect on their success, their challenges, and their growth as educators. By amplifying diverse voices and perspectives through storytelling, you can build a stronger sense of community and collaboration within your team. And the last 2 things I want to say is use metaphors. Incorporate metaphors into your storytelling to simply complex concepts and convey deeper meanings. Draw parallels between everyday experiences and the work of childcare professionals, highlighting themes of resilience, compassion, and transformation. And then lastly, I would say, provide context and relevance. Ensure that your stories are relevant to the experiences and aspirations of your team. Tailor your storytelling to address their interests and concerns and professional goals. By providing context and relevance, you can make your stories more impactful and meaningful to your audience. So the reasons that I, picked the milestones that I did, because of course there were other great milestones, like we taught, 200 children to read and etc. Right? So there are those milestones too. But the reason I picked those we were talking about excellence and what does excellence mean? And so when you're talking about accreditation or quality rating systems or, being the first in your state or your city to meet or raise standards, to me, that's excellence because that's you against you pushing yourself to be your very best. And so to me, that's important. Now, I also know there are people that don't see the value in accreditation, and you don't have to. That's just one metric. That's just one measure. There's many measures. And if you feel really great about the work that you're doing and, you're using some type of reliable research-based tool that says, yes, this is best practice and you're meeting it, that's fine too. Because again, your center should be what your heart and your mind sees as your vision, right? Let that guide you. I know it sounds hokey, but that, I'm just being honest and genuine. That's who I am. I lead everything with my heart, my gut, and my brain. Those are the ways that I do that. I think that could really help. And we'll also talk about regular updates and check-ins. So we're going to probably have to make this a part 2. Before we do that, I always like to find some inspiration. And 5 of my favorite leaders in early childhood education are Fred Rogers. We all know him, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, but he was a revolutionary folk. He really made an impact in children's television by promoting empathy, kindness, and social and emotional learning. All of us know. He really, to me, when you think teacher, you almost think Mr. Rogers, the sweater, all of it. But, kindness and empathy and social and emotional learning, I think, are something that are values that I hold very dear. And not only for our children, but also with our adults. Now, of course, on this list, we have to have Maria Montessori. If you are looking for inspiration, look no further than Maria Montessori, the founder of the Montessori method. She emphasized hands-on learning, exploration, learning, and individualized instruction. And really, most countries recognize that she was, onto something major that caught on in the early childhood education worldwide. Becky Bailey, the creator of Conscious Discipline, she is another person that you can look for to really find some inspiration. And she promotes self-regulation, emotional intelligence, positive discipline techniques in early childhood settings. And then, of course, there is the Reggio approach, that educational philosophy that started in Italy. I am Italian. I have to say I love it. Emphasizes children-led, project-based learning, collaboration, and the use of the environment as the third teacher. And lastly, I would say Barbara Colosio. Renowned for her work in parenting and education, Barbara promotes compassionate discipline, conflict resolution, and building respectful relationships with children. So if you're looking for inspiration to bring to your team from some of the best leaders in early childhood education, take a look there. I feel that all of those leaders have made a significant difference in our field by empowering teachers and promoting innovative approaches, fostering a nurturing and inclusive environment, and empowering children to reach their full potential. So I hope that today's episode, I know it was really long because I don't normally do long ones, but it's so important to me that you feel confident in your role as a leader. And I want you to be able to feel inspiring and to be inspiring and to inspire your team. And I want you to be able to figure out exactly where do you see yourself. I want you to have that clarity. I want you to have that alignment. So I hope that some of those tips were really, really helpful for you. I hope that you will consider holding a vision planning session or meeting for your team, whatever you want to call it. Some call it strategic, some call it vision. I don't care what you call it, just call it. Just hold the meeting, inspire your team, share the stories, share where you see the company going. They really, really love that. I know, we're real big on showing appreciation through, pizzas and, which is great. And, time out of the classroom, which is also great. But wow, using them as the example for quality, or this is the bar, like when I think best, pre-K teacher or toddler teacher, XYZ, this is who I'm thinking. And then showing the video and, tying that all together. What a way to make someone feel successful. And what a great way to give a great example. So I'm sorry about that. I just feeling really inspired today. And so I know we went a little long. Before we wrap up, 2 things I want to say. One, if you haven't already heard, we are giving away a $100 gift card to one lucky listener from Lakeshore Learning. All you have to do is go to text the show, let us know what episode you like best and why, and give us your name and address where you would like us to mail your gift card if you are the winner. We will be giving away this gift card in the next 2 weeks, so we are getting close. And that's it about that. And I guess this is where we end. And I say, remember, it's the little details that make a big impact on the success of your early learning center. Have a great night.
Well, all the cute little kiddos have been picked up and it's time to go home. And that'll do it for another episode of the Child Care Director's Chair. Please leave a review so Erica knows the information is helping you to manage and improve your childcare centers. Remember to subscribe to get the latest episode from Erica's Childcare Director's Chair.